Tom Anderson, day 56 of 100 Days of Thankfulness. Today I'm talking about the importance of success, as well as why I'm so thankful for my good friend Ryan Neuharth. So success can be measured in terms of the world's perspective, or it can be measured in terms of God's perspective. The world's perspective, I think we all know, if you're wealthy, famous, or extremely powerful, like a politician, then you're successful. God's perspective, I personally believe he looks at what's in your heart. And specifically, I think he's looking to see, do you have Jesus in your heart? If you have that, you have so much. If I were to compare someone who's successful from the world's perspective, but not from God's perspective, that might be someone who's, extremely wealthy doctor, lawyer type, but just doesn't know God and never comes to know about Jesus. Compared to someone who's, say, that polar opposite, I can imagine someone that maybe they've been, they're a drug addict and they've committed some crimes and they end up in jail, where then they repent and they come to know Jesus and they accept Jesus into their life. From the world's perspective, obviously, you've got something like this, but I think from God's perspective, it's the exact opposite. So for my 7 boys, not that I'd ever want them to ever get hooked on drugs and end up in prison, but if I had to choose between one or the other, I would choose that one where at least they have Jesus in their life. So I hope that helps kind of where I'm coming from a success perspective. Obviously, for my 7 boys, the thing that I want is, they're successful in both areas. And that's kind of part of why I'm doing even this video series, is I hope that this is something that they can learn from, that my wisdom will go, even beyond, after I've passed away. So now there's a couple, I'm a big sci-fi fan, so I just got to mention this. There's a couple movies that I've enjoyed that have helped me to have this perspective or God's perspective on success. One of them is The Matrix, and in The Matrix, the main character, Thomas Anderson, who's a programmer by day and computer hacker at night, he comes to realize that his whole life he's been living in this virtual world, and he finds out that there's a way to escape, and he can get out into the real world, and then he can also come back in to the virtual world to help others escape into the real world. And I think that just so beautifully is a great example of kind of, the way our life is today. There's our life is so temporary, and the main thing that we have to figure out is, how can we get to the real world? How can we get to heaven? And then once we've learned that, our mission, our life becomes about coming back in to that virtual world and rescuing people. The other movie that I've enjoyed is Spider-Man, and in that movie, Spider-Man's uncle, actually, who dies in the movie, he has this famous quote where it's, "With great power comes great responsibility." And I mentioned earlier, if you make $34,000 or more a year, you're in the world's top 1% of the wealthiest people in the world. And so with that great wealth comes that great power, and with great power is great responsibility. And we have a responsibility to those around us. So this all reminds me of my friend, Ryan Neuharth, who I was going to be getting to. So Ryan Neuharth, I would say he's one of those, right? He on this side, from the world's perspective, he's the Chief Information Officer of King Solutions. I worked with him at my last 2 full-time positions before I went off on my own. And I've had the privilege of working a number of different side jobs with him. He's helped me get a bunch of side jobs. I mentioned the other day about how I was laid off, and even after I came back, I was making a lot less, but I managed to get by through side jobs. Well, a lot of that has to do with Ryan. Ryan was the guy that really helped my whole family to save our house by helping me get those side jobs so that I had enough income in order to pay the bills. So I'm so thankful to Ryan for that, but I'm also thankful to him for just the example that he's always led. He's a brilliant programmer, but he's always, working with him has always been such a pleasure, because he's always thinking of the other person and putting the other person first. We would go out, kind of like today. I'm out on my lunch break taking a walk. That's something that we would do on a regular basis. And he would try to encourage people, hey, let's get out, let's get some air, and let's get away from our computer screens for a while. So he always understood that balance. He had that balance, and he always put God first, and he always put family up on the top, and so he's high in that regard as well. So he's just inspired me in all those different ways, in terms of I see him as being successful because he is both successful from the world's view, but also successful from God's view. And what he's doing, what he's doing with his wealth is he is taking the appropriate responsibility to share that with other people. And again, it's not just wealth. Like I mentioned the other day, it's also your talent and your time. It's time, talent, treasure. All of these things you can apply and share with the rest of the world in order to be successful. So thanks again to Ryan Neuharth.